internet! Today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite LGBTQ plus books. This is a video I've been wanting to make all month for Pride Month, and I'm finally getting around to it. We all know how I am about filming. I'm sorry if my nose looks super red. My allergies are killing me today. But yeah, I wanted to talk about my favorite LGBTQ plus books, my favorite queer books, kind of spanning a bunch of different genres. Most of the ones I'm going to talk about are own voices, but there are a few that are not, so I will kind of mention that throughout. And some of them are just like authors in general. So let's jump into it. The first one I wanted to bring up is my favorite book of all time, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is not own voices, so I do want to make that known, but I still feel like the representation was so well done. Evelyn Hugo is bisexual, and as somebody who is also bisexual, there was so much in this book that I could really relate to, and I think that Taylor did a really great job writing Evelyn as a character. Like I said, this is like my favorite book of all time, that's except like aside from Harry Potter, so that's a really big statement, and it absolutely deserves all the hype it gets. She knocked it out of the park. What can I say? It's a great book. This is about Evelyn Hugo, who is a movie star. Not really, but in this book she's a movie star, and she's kind of dictating her life story to this journalist named Monique, and it's heartbreaking and it's great, and I'm gonna shut up about it now. Next one I want to talk about is an author, and that author is Ashley Herring Blake. She has written several books. My two favorite by hers are probably How to Make a Wish and Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World. She writes YA and middle grade, and most of her books are queer. Ashley Herring Blake is bisexual, so they're also all own voices. Honestly, like, I haven't given a book by Ashley less than 5 stars. They have all been phenomenal. She's a great author. I feel like people don't talk about her enough, and all of her books are just fantastic. My favorite is probably How to Make a Wish, but they're all just like great. Next I want to talk about Everything Leads to You by Nina Lacour, and also We Are Okay by Nina Lacour. Nina Lacour is also a queer author. I believe she uses the term bisexual to identify herself, but both of these books are really good. They're the only two by her that I've read, but they were both really good. The representation was great, the story was great. Everything Leads to You is a little more lighthearted. It's about a girl named Emmy who has kind of like an internship type, summer job type thing on a movie set, which was really interesting, and she ends up in a relationship with one of the like main stars of this movie. And it was really cool to like see all the different takes on like Hollywood and all that stuff. And then We Are Okay is very different. This is a story mainly about grief. We Are Okay is a story about a girl named Marin who lived with her grandfather, and he recently passed away. And she kind of just runs off to New York, which is where she's planning on going to college, and kind of starts to ignore everybody that she knew just because she's so overcome with grief that she doesn't know how to have anything to do with her old life. And then her best friend comes to see her for the holidays, and Marin starts to kind of work through some of that grief. It was a beautiful story. I read it for the first time this month and I absolutely loved it. Another recent read of mine that I absolutely loved is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston is bisexual, and this is a new release about Alex, who is the first son of the President of the United States of America, and Prince Henry of Wales, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers story. It's great. It's my favorite book I've read so far this year. I really liked the representation in this one too. It was great all around. I absolutely loved it. Alex is bi and Henry is gay, but I really loved this book. It was so cute. To kind of go in a different direction, because I want to talk about identities all over the spectrum. Another one of my favorite books is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Rousseau. Meredith Rousseau is a trans author, and this is a trans own voices story. It's about this girl named Amanda who's kind of recently transitioned, and she has to change schools basically just because of how she was being treated at her last school. So she goes to live with her dad and starts a new school. It was just a really great story, and it's a very important story. And also, one of the really cool things about this book in particular is there was a trans model that was used for the cover, which I think is really, really cool. So I'm reading Meredith's newest book, Birthday, right now, and so far I really, really like it too. I'm not very far into it, but I really, really like what I've read so far. So she's definitely an author that I'm going to be continuously reading from as she comes out with new books. Next, I want to talk about History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This is my favorite Adam Silvera book that I've read so far. Adam Silvera is a gay author, so this is also an Voices story, but this one is a very, very sad one. This is about Theo, whose ex-boyfriend and kind of his like first love has just passed away. And so this is another book that's very heavily focused on grief. And really the only other person that understands how Theo is feeling is his ex-boyfriend's current boyfriend, Jackson, and so they kind of start to work through their grief together, and it's just a really great story. Very, very sad, obviously, but I think that Adam Silvera really knocks it out of the park with this book. It's definitely my favorite book of his that I've read so far. Speaking of Adam Silvera, a recent book of his is What If It's Us, which was co-written with Becky Albertalli as well. This is one of those books that it's not really a coming out story. Both of the main characters in this book are already out and proud, and it was kind of refreshing to read that, and the story was a lot of fun. So I definitely enjoyed this book, and I also really like Becky's book Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which I feel like pretty much everybody knows about this book. It's definitely a favorite of mine. It's something that I've read multiple times, and it's a book that I really enjoy. Another more recent favorite of mine is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. This is a book that is also another new release, and I just finished this book, but it is about a non-binary character named Ben, and it's also an Own Voices story because Mason is non-binary as well. This one's a little more hard-hitting. Ben, when they come out to their parents, they get kicked out of their house, and they go to live with their sister. But there's also like a really cute like friendship to romance story in here. And to be honest, I haven't read a lot of books that have non-binary characters in it. So I really, really enjoyed this story. It's definitely a new favorite. And this is a debut, so I'll definitely be checking out more of Mason's work as they come out with more. I do want to talk about a couple of fantasy books as well. It's harder to find queer characters in fantasy books, which is a huge problem, and that's a discussion for another day. But one of my favorites is definitely Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire. This is the first book in a series of kind of companion books. I feel they all go together, but they feature different main characters. But this is the first book, and each book in this series is about children who visit different portal worlds. So by portal worlds, think like Wonderland, Oz, Narnia, places like that. Different kids will visit these worlds, and then once they come back to the real world, they don't really know how to adjust. So there is this school called Eleanor West Home for Wayward Children. It's been a while. That a lot of them will come to, and they all kind of at least understand each other, even though they all came from different worlds, if that makes sense. But this first book features an asexual main character, and I think that it was really, really well done. I really liked it. And each one of these books is very interesting. They all kind of talk about different like sexualities and gender norms and things like that, but as far as like really good queer representation, I think that this book probably stands out the most for its ace rep. So really recommend this series just overall. I also wanted to talk about Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Negan. This is a book that came out towards the end of last year, and it has a female-female romance in it. I believe the author is bi, but I may be wrong about that. But I also really liked the representation in this book as well. This in this world, there are different castes that people kind of fit into, and the main character in this book, Lay, is a paper case, which is kind of like the lowest case you can be in, and she ends up becoming one of the king's new courtesans, and then she falls in love with another courtesan, and it's a really good story. It's super intense. It's very triggering for like abuse and sexual assault, so keep that in mind. But I really, really liked how diverse this story is, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next book in this series. The next book I want to talk about is Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy. This is one of my favorite books that features a bisexual main character. Ramona lives, I believe it was in Mississippi, so in the South, and she actually, when this book begins, she identifies as gay, but one of her childhood friends, who's a guy, kind of moves back to their hometown, and she starts to kind of have feelings for him, so she starts to question her sexuality again and thinks that she might be bi. Julie Murphy is also a bisexual author, so again, this is another Own Voices story, but I really found this book very refreshing and very relatable in a lot of different ways, so it's definitely up there on the favorites list. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is a couple of poets that I really like. The first of which is Jenna Clair, who's another booktuber. She's asexual, and in her book, Water Runs Red, she talks a lot about asexuality. I thought that that was really great. And another poet is Amanda Loveless, who has written several poetry collections. These are the two that I read by her. The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, but Amanda is also another asexual author and talks about asexuality a lot in her poetry collections. That's all I'm going to talk about in this video. There are definitely so many more wonderful queer books out there. These are just some of my personal favorites, but I want to know what your favorite queer books are, so let me know down in the comments, and let me know if you also really like any of the same ones that I do. And that will be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye!